On March 13th of 2008, public sex was decriminalized in Vondel Park. Vondel Park is an extremely popular park for people to go to in Amsterdam, Netherlands. To be more specific about this law, people are allowed to copulate in the woodsy area of the park as they please anytime after dark. If people were to participate in these activities before the law was made, it would normally lead to a fine. Paul van Gierken, an Amsterdam official, said, quote, "Why prohibit something that hardly bothers other people and that, to the contrary, gives much more pleasure to a particular group?" This is a very utilitarian take on the matter. Paul is essentially saying that the net good outweighs the net bad that could come from this law. An act utilitarian would say an action is morally good if it produces the best consequences. However, a rule utilitarian could say an act is good if the rule that permits it would, if followed, maximize utility. In other words, a rule utilitarian could create a rule saying that public sex is immoral because it is insensitive to the public. Although utilitarianism sounds like a pretty convincing argument, let's dissect the consequences and negative outcomes that could come from this. It's important to know that Vondel Park is one of the most popular parks for people in Amsterdam to go to. Lots of families bring their children here to hang out and have a picnic. One of the worst outcomes would be if a child was somehow exposed to this act and psychologically harmed. An adult may be able to stumble across this situation and laugh it off or divert their attention, but it's hard to predict how a child would be affected in this situation. Imagine pushing your child on a swing and having to ignore the couple in the distance as they nakedly embrace. This doesn't seem like the most child-friendly park. However, if the people involved in these acts were able to distance themselves from families and try to find a more private space in the woods, maybe this would negate any negative consequences, such as a child coming across. Additionally, the National Diversity Expertise Center wants public sex to be illegal in all public parks. This situation does beg the question, is it necessary to have sex in public? Is that much more pleasurable than having sex in private? Again, sex was never illegal before this law was made, it simply wasn't legal in public. In the same way that it is good etiquette to be quiet during a movie, maybe it is also good etiquette to not have sex publicly for all to see. Clearly, this law proposes many questions. For one, it goes against our societal structures and what we have always thought to be private matters. This is an interesting case to analyze from an ethical point of view. There are many perspectives to take on this matter. Another approach to this ethical debate is to apply Kant's moral theories to the discussion. Kant created the idea of something known as a categorical imperative. A categorical imperative essentially means that whatever you do must also apply to everyone. If I go to the grocery store and steal a Snickers bar, you might say that the consequences aren't too drastic because the store only loses a Snickers bar. However, if everyone goes to the store and steals a Snickers bar, then our system of exchanging products for money would crumble. Now suppose that everyone in the world went to the park to engage in these acts. That does sound like a pretty disturbing and inappropriate picture, but if everyone is consenting to these acts, then it is not necessarily causing any harm. Kant also created the idea of a goodwill. Goodwill, in his idea, is a will that conforms to duty for the sake of duty. Having sex in public does seem to prioritize seeking pleasure over the common decency of respecting others. These are some ethical theories that help try to solve this issue. I found myself somewhere in the middle of this problem. I think that if people are somehow more happy by engaging in these acts in the woods and are not seen by anyone, then they should be able to do so. However, it's hard to measure the implications of all these outcomes.